Hey guys, June here. In this video I want to do a quick guide for the new enhanced hard mode version of the Nomad fight. We're going to keep it short because there's actually not a lot of mechanics to the fight. It is still relatively challenging, especially if you're trying to get the blood cape. It's kind of a DPS challenge, but there's not a lot to cover, so let's get started. Gearing up here is pretty straightforward. I strongly recommend you do this with melee, although you can do it with any attack style, because melee allows you to circumvent and basically ignore one of Nomad's special attacks, as well as use a scrimshot of vampirism to improve your healing. Since you can't use soul split during this fight, you pretty much are just going to be constantly eating food if you don't have the available healing from the scrimshot. Apart from that, you just want top DPS everything, and that includes things like a Berserker Aura, Reaper Necklace because accuracy is extremely important here, things like Dominion Tower gloves, and your best power armor. Nomad can also be stunned by using Dread Nips, and he is susceptible to poison, so both of those things are advantageous, and you definitely need to make sure that you have either a defender or a shield switch that you can use resonance with to block one of Nomad's other special attacks. Apart from that, all you need is brews and food, and definitely you're going to want to start out at least using a pack yak full of food as well. Once you get really well acquainted with this, assuming you're using a scrimshot of vampirism, you can actually move to a Blood Nile familiar instead. The fight with Nomad takes place across 4 different phases, and on the first 3 phases his primary form of attack is a typeless damage attack, so our overhead prayer pretty much doesn't matter since we can't actually use soul split during the fight with Nomad. There are only a couple of special attacks on this phase. The first are indicated by dark spots appearing on the ground, and then you'll receive magic damage based on one of 2 special attacks that occur in that area. Those purple beams deal continuous damage while you stand on them, and these red bombs deal up to 2,000 damage in a 3x3 area around them. All you need to do to avoid those attacks is to move away from the spots before the attacks actually go off, though this can be a bit challenging and it won't completely ruin the fight if you get hit by them from time to time. For the second special, Nomad teleports you to the center of the bridge and says feel the power of Gillinor, and then the gross Guthix thing will smash its hand down on the spot that you were teleported to. If you're using melee, you're automatically going to run to whichever side of the bridge Nomad appears on to avoid this special attack, and this can be completely ignored. That's all that's going on phase 1, so once we deplete Nomad's HP, our HP gets fully restored and we move on to phase 2. On phase 2, Nomad gains 1 new special attack. He teleports to one side of the bridge and says, "Can you handle my wrath?" and shortly after fires an attack that deals either 7,500 or 9,000 typeless damage. This is when we want to use either our defender or shield switch and res to completely block that damage. Aside from this, the fight is exactly identical to phase 1, and once we deplete Nomad's HP, our HP gets fully restored and we move on to phase 3. The first half of phase 3 is identical to phase 2, but once Nomad reaches 100,000 HP, he summons a mirror image of himself and stops using his Wrath special attack. As far as I can tell so far, there's no way to tell which of the Nomads is the correct Nomad, and so you should just pick one at random and defeat it as quickly as possible. They each have 100,000 HP, and since both of them are now using Nomad's basic typeless damage attack, you're going to be taking quite a bit more damage than before, and this is the first part of the fight where you absolutely definitely are going to need food. If the Nomad that you chose to kill first was the correct Nomad, the phase will change to phase 4 as soon as he's dead. However, if you made a poor selection, you'll then have to kill the other Nomad, adding up to 100,000 life points to the fight. This makes it quite a bit more challenging to do this in under 8 minutes to get the Blood Soul Cape, but it can still be done. After the correct Nomad is killed on phase 3, we move on to the final phase, phase 4, where Nomad starts using his melee attack. The only special attacks that occur on this phase are Gillinor using the Purple Pillars of Magic and the Red Bomb special attacks. However, Nomad gains the ability to turn off your deflect prayers periodically. His attack speed on this phase is very fast, so when he does deactivate your protection prayers, you're going to be taking very rapid damage, and you're definitely going to be needing to stuff food in your mouth during this part of the fight. With that said though, there's really not a lot of strategy on this phase. Make sure you're reactivating your protection prayers when you can, stuffing your mouth full of food, and DPSing as hard as possible, and the phase should be over relatively quickly. Thanks as always for watching. Hopefully this video gives you some tips for getting your own Blood Soul Cape, and I'll see you guys in the next video.